Oceanic Research and Education, or CORE for short. We study primarily the humpbacks and the fin whales in the inshore areas of New England out here. There are other kinds of whales we can find out here, but those are the two focus species for our research, and this is my 13th year conducting field studies in the area. Before talking a little bit more about the whales, I would just like to mention a couple brief things. Firstly, weather-wise, we do have a really nice afternoon here on shore. It's going to be significantly cooler out there, about 15, maybe even 20 degrees cooler. The water temperature is only about 40 degrees, so any wind coming off the water is really, really cold. So if you need to grab any layers, I really recommend it, and you're welcome to hop off the boat if you would like to run back up to your car and grab another layer or two, because it really is going to be so cold. A word too about sea condition. Just listen to the forecast, and they're calling for a 2 to 4 foot sea, and I'd be surprised if we have that much out there. We had a lot of wind yesterday, and this morning it dropped off considerably, so we might end up with maybe just a little bit of choppiness, maybe even a little bit of a roll. So if you're prone to motion sickness, I definitely would recommend taking something. We want everyone to feel comfortable, and if you're really not sure about it, it's not a bad idea to take something as a preventative. So if you need to purchase any Dramamine or Bonine, you can buy that right in the tackle shop, in the gift shop there, so you can hop off the boat if you would like to take anything, and it's a good idea to get it in your system now before we get off the dock. And lastly here, and most importantly, an important word about the whales themselves. Now, hopefully everybody realizes that on these trips we are setting out to see wild animals in their natural environment. That combination means we really don't know anything about what we're going to see today. We haven't been out since Wednesday. The weather has not been conducive to whale watching at all. It's been pretty windy and rough, so we haven't been out on the water for a few days. And I'll be totally honest with you, Wednesday when we went out, we didn't see any whales. The whales have been really moving around a lot over the last month. We've been going out on trips. When we started our trips, we were seeing lots and lots of whales. It was wonderful, fabulous, and then the whales moved south. They've been feeding in an area about 45, 50 miles south of here, which is totally out of our reach on a half-a-day trip. So the chances are that we could go out there and not see any whales again today, or the chances are the whales could have moved north in the last couple of days. So it's been 3 days, a lot of wind, really tends to churn things up and move things around. So we're very optimistic that we're going to be heading out there, and hopefully we'll be able to find some whales for you today. We've got good, clear visibility, which is the perfect thing that's on our side. The further we can see, the greater our chances of finding whales. So I'll just let you know that there is that chance. There's always that chance, though, because we're dealing with a population of wild animals, and we'll certainly do our very best today to find as many whales as we can and get you nice close looks at them. Now, the species I mentioned that we study are the humpbacks and fin whales, and there's another species that is possible for us to see out here called the minke whale. Those are really the three major whale species for us. We spend most of our time with the bigger whales, with the humpbacks and fin whales. They're also pretty easily confused, so I'm going to give you a couple pointers on how we tell the humpbacks and the fin whales apart. Now, firstly, the first major difference between them is their size. Fin whales are the second largest whale. They're second in size only to blue whales. The blue whales, however, live much further north, up around the Gulf of St. Lawrence. So if you want to see a blue whale, you're going to have to make a trek much further north. So for us, the fin whales are the biggest. They get up to about 70, 75 feet in length, and they can weigh 50 tons or 100,000 pounds. To give you some idea of that size, kind of hard to judge that on the ocean. The boat we are on, this is called the Yankee Spirit. This is a 90-foot vessel. The big boat beside us here, the Yankee Caps, is 100 feet long. So it's possible to see adult fin whales that are just about 3/4 the size of these boats. Now, humpback, on the other hand, is a shorter, stockier species. They get up to about 50, 55 feet maximum, about half the size of the boats. And a 50-foot humpback can weigh 40 tons. So they're almost 1 ton per foot. That makes them very fat, very rotund whales, and that's another really easily visible difference between humpbacks and fin whales is their body shape. Fin whales really are long and thin. They're really skinny as far as whales go. They don't have a lot of blubber on their bodies, and they really do look long and sleek when they're at the surface. Humpbacks, on the other hand, are much stockier, fatter whales, and they do look very wide when they do rise up to the surface. And probably one of the easiest ways we tell humpbacks from fin whales is how they'll go down for a deep dive. Fin whales really kind of keep a low profile all the time. And when they decide to take a deep dive, they still keep a very low profile. They'll arch their back just slightly and then just sort of slip underwater. We really don't see a lot of their bodies at the surface. Humpbacks, on the other hand, because of all the blubber on their bodies, they have to make a much greater effort to get underwater. So the humpbacks usually will arch the back, when they're going down for a dive, and then they'll bring their tails right up into the air to assist them in getting down deeper. Now, when the humpback brings the tail up, that's very important to our research. That's the basis of our research on humpback whales. On the underside of a humpback's tail, there's a lot of information for us. Every humpback is born with a set of black and white markings on the tail. These markings are comparable to a human fingerprint. They're just as unique, just as reliable. The whales are born with these markings, and again, they don't change through their entire lifetime. So this is how we actually track them. We don't have to mark the whales or tag them in order to recognize them, but instead we use photographs of their natural markings, and these are called photo identification studies that we conduct on the whales. And through the many years of conducting these studies, we've learned a lot about the population out here. Probably one of the most important things we've learned is that this is a resident population of whales. The same humpbacks come here year after year. In fact, some of the same humpbacks have been coming here for 26 years in a row now. You might have noticed that life-size tail up in the parking lot there, up in the waiting area of the whale named Salt. Salt was actually just sighted again this spring. It's the 27th year we've seen Salt, 27 years in a row, and she just brought back her 8th calf, her 8th baby this spring. So she's definitely a regular to this area, and many of the whales are. And through the trip today, I'll be talking a lot more about the research that we're doing, much more about the whales themselves, and much more about the really amazing migrations that they make. Now, one of the other really important factors we'd like you to keep in mind through the trip today is why the whales come here. Why would they want to come here 27 years in a row? Definitely a nice place to visit, but there's a real purpose behind the whales coming here, and that is to feed. This area of ocean off New England is one of the most productive, nutrient-rich areas of ocean in the entire world, and we have a variety of small organisms that the whales like to eat in these waters out here. And they do feed on a variety of organisms, sometimes zooplankton, microscopic animals. And actually most of the whales in this area feed on small schooling fish, small herring, small mackerel, menhaden. And specifically where we're going today, the whales are feeding on a small schooling fish species called the sand eel. And I have a sand eel right here. If you want to take a look at this little fish, this is exactly why the whales come to this area each year. Sand eels obviously are pretty small. You wouldn't imagine that one would satisfy a 40 or 50 ton whale, and that's true.
Really?
The whales actually eat entire schools of these fish at a time. These fish school in schools of hundreds of thousands. There might be millions of sand eels in some of the schools. And the whales are, again, going to swallow down pretty much the whole school in one gulp. One mouthful for a humpback might contain 30 or 40 pounds of sand eels. And during the course of one day, during each and every day, each whale is going to eat about 2,000 pounds of these fish, about a ton of sand eels for each whale each day. That's about 1 million calories for each whale, just to give you an idea of caloric intake. Now, the whales, when they're feeding, they don't chew their food. They don't have teeth. In fact, there are two very different kinds of whales. Some whales do have teeth: sperm whales, pilot whales, killer whales, dolphins, porpoise, etc. So those species have teeth. The kinds of whales we see out here, humpbacks, fin whales, and minke whales, actually filter their food from the water with a substance called baleen. And that's what this is right here. It is not a piece of wood. This is actually a piece of baleen from a right whale's mouth. So many species have baleen, including blue whales, the biggest whales of all, are also filter feeders. Now, baleen is made out of keratin. It's the same protein that makes up your fingernails, your hair. Horses' hooves are also made of keratin. These plates, depending upon the species, number anywhere from 600 to 800. So there are 600 to 800 of these plates hanging vertically from the whale's upper jaw. And the plates are stacked very tightly against each other, almost like a deck of cards. And sometimes on these trips we get to see the whales feeding at the surface. We'll get to look right inside their mouths. And if the whale opens up the mouth, hanging from the upper jaw, it looks almost like a comb, because you're just seeing this edge of the plates hanging down. On the inside edge of each plate, there's a fringed portion. Looks just like your hair, and it's basically the same thing. This fringed edge overlaps with the plate on either side of it, and it forms a big mesh that hangs from the whale's upper jaw. And this mesh is actually what the whales are using to filter all of their food from the water. Now, when they're feeding, the whales swim through the school of fish with their mouth wide open. The lower jaw on these whales expands like a pelican's pouch, It'll expand to contain maybe up to 500, 600 gallons of salt water, and maybe 40 or 50 pounds of these small fish be inside that single mouthful. Now, they don't want to swallow 500 gallons of salt water. That's not a very efficient way of feeding, and it's also a very large strain on their kidneys. So instead of swallowing all the salt water, after they've taken in this huge lower jaw full of fish and water, they close the small lower jaw down. Then they use their throat muscles and tongue to squirt the salt water out. Now the mesh hangs from the upper jaw. It allows the salt water to escape very easily, but the little fish are all trapped along the inside. It's basically like a big spaghetti strainer, but instead of straining spaghetti, we're straining sand eels out of the water. And the whales are obviously feeding out here pretty heavily through the spring, summer, and fall, and again, eating a ton of fish every single day. So this area really is very, very productive, and luckily for us, usually it's only about a 15-mile ride to get out there. Now, specifically where we're going today is called Stellwagen Bank. If you take a look at that handout, you can kind of get a rough idea of where we're going. We're heading south and east off of Gloucester, and we're going to be starting on the northern part of this underwater ledge called Stellwagen Bank. That's where the sand eels live, and that's generally, again, where the humpbacks are going to go, and other whale species to go and feed on the sand eels. We're going to start looking for whales about 12 miles out. That's where the northern part of this bank starts. And then we're just going to keep heading south and east along the edge of Stellwagen Bank. The bank itself is 20 miles long, so sometimes we're as far as 30 miles offshore, sometimes we're as close as 12 miles. We'd certainly rather be closer than further, but we'll just see what is in for our trip today. We'll keep you updated through the trip too if we get any reports from any of the fishing boats or anything out there. Most of the time it takes us about an hour to an hour and a half to get out there with the whales, and hopefully again they'll be out there in numbers and very close by for us today. Once we're out offshore, we'll be using the numbers of a clock to point out the direction through the trip, and it works like this. The whales are right off the front of the boat. We'll say 12 o'clock. If they're off the right-hand side, that's going to be called 3 o'clock. If they're off the stern, the rear of the boat, that's called 6 o'clock. Or off the port left side over here, we'll say 9 o'clock. So we use numbers from 1 to 12 throughout the day. And this is how we'll point out the whales, seabirds, or any other interesting marine life that we might get to see. And lastly, I'd just like to introduce our crew. Again, my name is Lisa. You're also going to be hearing another voice on the microphone. Her name is Suzanne, and she's training today, so be very nice to her because this will be her first foray on the microphone, so she'll be talking about the whales today too. In the wheelhouse today, we have Captain John. We have two mates on deck, Nate
and Bob.
Nate and Brian, I'm sorry. It's Brian's first day on the boat today. So anyway, sorry, Brian. So Nate and Brian, and then we have Maris in the galley. And with that, I'm just going to be giving the microphone back to our captain. He's going to briefly tell us about the safety equipment we carry on board, and we'll be departing in just a moment. Thanks very much for your attention, and sure hope we can find you lots and lots of whales.
As we're pulling away from the dock, just tell you about some of the birds we might see today. Usually right around here we see some double-crested cormorant birds, which are larger, all black. A lot of times we'll see them sitting right along the docks. We'll also see the greater gulls and the double. For those of you who might not be from this area, as we're turning the boat, we're entering the Answam River. This is a tidal river. It rises and falls each day with the tides. When we have extreme tides in the area, the water level might rise and fall. As we get up closer, they'll be opening up the drawbridge for us, and as soon as we're through the bridge, we'll be out in Gloucester Harbor, and we'll be taking the southeast course to get towards Stellwagen Bank.
You're going out to go fishing. What's that right there over there? A red little house. Oh, great, thanks.
chilly anytime through the trip, our research center has sweatshirts and hats for sale on board. We also have whale watchers guides available. And they're laminated guides put out by the Massachusetts Audubon Society, featuring whales, seabirds, and other marine life in the area. All proceeds for the guides and sweatshirts directly benefit our research, so please let any of the crew know if you'd like.
Go ahead, honey. You can stand up. Remember she said keep one hand on the vessel, one hand free. So hang on to us or the bench, okay?
Yeah, right there. Behind us.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I walk down right down? These guys go high.
Around here with the different vessels and having some.
What's down there? Oh yeah, she said the water was about 40 degrees.
Now, humpback whales, blue up, and fin whales, which we are seeing here right around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, do not fluke. There he flows again. No. But we identify fin whales by the shape of their dorsal fin and mark.
Go for it again. There he is. See him?
Yeah, I see him. He's right there.
Yeah.
I see this one.
Okay, put him in your pocket. Whoa, did you see it?
Oh, I can't see. Oh, bigger whale.
Did you see?
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Yep.
This finback is in resting behavior at a very slow travel right now, so when they're traveling normally, they can be very fast. Sometimes they'll keep right up with the boat. As you can see, he's not moving too quickly, so this is a resting behavior for him.
Good. He's real slow. Wait, not just
And I
yet.
started to say earlier, we were looking for a finback.
Whoa.
We can identify them with their markings. On the right side of their body, they have it's called chevron. It's white markings that we have.
And you got the video camera?
Yep.
She's got every move of him. Where is he now?
It's gonna come up right around there somewhere.
They come down right around here sometimes.
There he was. Did you hear it?
Finn? Oh, I can't prove that. He's right there.
See him? How close you are?
Close
That looks
we
to be a
are.
sounding dive for this fin whale, so it can be a few more minutes before.
Right there.
Right about 9 o'clock, you'll see some smooth patches of water.
Right there?
We call those the footprints.
I see.
The mixing of the water, the swelling of the water as the fin whale brings up his tail. They're a good identification. about 45 minutes, but most common is about 6 to 8 right in this area. Finbacks are one of the few species we study in this area, trying to get as much information as we can about them. They're so elusive, much still yet to be learned. For example, we're not quite sure how long the mother and calves stay together. Exactly where they migrate to in the winter is unknown. Trying to get as much information through their identification as possible, so we
Okay.
can further our knowledge about them.
What are you looking for, Todd?
Whales.
Between 11 and 12, look one ways up, you can see the humpback whales surfacing. You notice that their blow is quite a bit different from the blow that we were seeing on the finback.
See his fin a little bit. Very close. We're far out. Yeah. We'll be going. We'll be heading back just probably after this, I bet. Hopefully we can get up a little bit closer. See. We want them to be right here, don't we? Right next to us.
Ideally, what we'd like to see is humpbacks going for a dive, looking up, so we're able to get a photograph of the whales and identify who they are. But it looks like they're just traveling along.
There it goes.
Yeah, you can see them. Their blows at 11 o'clock.
What is
Again, we do have a group of 3 humpbacks here. Humpbacks do tend to be solid.
There he is. See him, Jordan?
And according to guidelines, only one boat is allowed in about a 100-foot radius of the whale, so we're only going to stay back about 100 yards, 300 feet. And we don't want to box the whales in, make them feel like we're invading their area. Yeah, right around.
I hear it. That sounded, yeah, did you hear it?
We're not sure, but we might have a group of 3 that consists of a mother and a calf and an escort. The escort of the group is often a juvenile female that is pardon me. Again, the escort. It's just it'll travel with the group, it might break off, might be sticking with the mother and the calf for just a little while, undetermined time.
Oh, a little bit.
That one.
See it?
What you just saw is a tail breach. It's probably the
Oh,
calf.
did you see it, Jay? Oh, see them together?
Yes, we definitely have a mother and a
A
calf
mother
here.
and a calf.
Just to describe a tail breach is when they'll just throw the back half of their body out of the water. You see that behavior more with the calves. They're more playful and splash around a bit more, trying to learn their behaviors from their mothers.
Watch, Jay, watch. She's learning, she's trying. What do you need?
There is a whale by the name of
There she
Laugh.
goes, Jay.
And this calf is her fourth calf. What you just saw was a fluke. That's what we're looking for. We took a photo of that, so we'll be able to put this in our record.
So you're playing, Jay? Oh.
See a calf doing a barrel roll there? Definitely the calf. This calf is probably only about 4 months old, born down in the warmer waters near the Dominican or Puerto Rico. Obviously, very playful.
I like pictures.
Alright,
That's the last one.
we'll use Todd's for you, okay? Okay?
You got the fin?
We'll make you
These are
doubles.
my pictures.
I'll make you doubles.
Just running. 11 o'clock.
She flipped over.
Go, Todd.
Did you see her flip over, Jordan? Jordan, she's waving to you.
That's the calf you just saw rolling upside down. It's about 10
That's
o'clock.
okay. Over again.
Calf's being rather playful. Flippers, flaps, rolling upside down.
That got brought in. There's two.
See him?
Brought one back.
Whoops. Sorry, Jordan.
That one back.
Adult humpbacks, their flippers can get up to 15 feet, about 1/3 of their body size, and weigh 1 ton. And as the calf is playing near the surface, you might be able to see its flipper right up underneath the surface of the water. When you do, it might look a little green. It's actually a beautiful white color. It's the microscopic plants in the water, the phytoplankton, that
give it that color.
Oh, you see it? Oh, look, Jordan, you see her playing? Hey, geez. Oh,
That's my camera.
oh,
And
look
half
at
upside down again. It's awful playful today.
Oh, look how pretty.
Hey kid, did you get that?
She knows she's on
Erin,
camera.
you got all that video?
What'd you say?
You got all that video?
Yeah?
12 o'clock.
Oh, smart for us.
Yeah, folks, I realize it may be a little frustrating if you're on the right side of the boat right now, but just because of the location of these other boats and the location of the whales, we really can't turn the boat at this point, just again for the safety of the whales and our boats. So just bear with us here. We'll do our best to switch sides here as soon as we can.
Did you get some good pictures of it? I don't see her. Oh, I know, honey. Hey, Jordan.
11 o'clock.
Now we'll know where they are so we can get a little closer.
You'll notice that we're seeing the calf at the surface much more frequently than the mother. For about the first 6 months, the calf can only dive 12 o'clock. Can only dive for about 5 minutes. Her lung capacity is not quite at all the size of the mother's.
Oh, now we're gonna get. Oh, see that?
I see it.
Todd, you see? Oh, look, Jordan.
Right
She's
there.
waving.
Belly up, tail slapping again. Calf is awful playful.
Oh. See it? Yeah, it's 4 months old. Whoa. She does not sound happy.
What you just heard from the mother calves, we call it trumpet blow or an elephant blow. Often do that as a sign of aggravation or excitement.
Oh.
If you look, you can see the baby's head, it just went underwater.
Did you see her? See her? There's her back. Whoa. See her
That's
fin,
its
George?
liver right there.
Look at, she's funny.
Some of you might be able to notice that there are small bumps on the head of the whales. Each one of those bumps is called a tubercle and has a single hair coming out of it. This is unique for the humpback whales. I think that they use these as a sensory mechanism. Trident just a moment ago brought her tail up. She is named for 3 dark forked lines on the upper left-hand side of her tail. Again, up at 11 o'clock, I have the calf slate doing some belly up tail flapping, or bobtailing as it's called.
Oh, nice. See her, Jay? She's playing. Oh. Oh. T, did you see her? She is playful.
When this calf was born, it was probably only about 10 to 12 feet long, weighing about 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. And for the first 6 to 8 months of its life, it'll be nursing from its mother. Again, these are mammals, so the mother does have mammary glands which produce a very thick milk. It's almost all fat. These calves are putting on about 1 inch length a day and
Oh my God.
about 100 pounds. Again, it's 10 o'clock.
Oh, way over there. Uh-oh, it's getting harder now.
This calf will only stay with its mother for the first year of its life, and then it'll be independent, move solitary as the other members of its species. What we're doing is trying to get photographs of the markings of the fluke, so next year a research scientist will get together and take the best photos we have of this individual and name it, so we're able to identify it much more easily in the field in years to come.
Jordan, see her flipping over?
Again, that's the calf you're seeing right at the surface.
looks like they're leaving. Or they're just turning. There's some people on the other side.
Another one, Erin.
What'd you say?
Another one. Oh, you look down there.
Where'd you see it?
Right straight out.
Huh.
Sit out of the water.
Whoa.
9 o'clock. Sorry to report, but we only have about 10 more minutes that we can spend out here before we have to think about heading back.
Good, because we only got about 16 minutes.
But on
worth
the
of
way
film
in,
left.
Lisa and myself will be down inside cabin to answer any questions that you might have about the whales that we found today, or just whales in general. We'll also have our souvenir set up,
Oh,
which again include some of the guides, hats, sweatshirts. We also have excellent photographs of some humpback whales and some Atlantic white-side dolphins that we're selling. We also do have information if you would like to become a member, in which we're boasting the new privilege of discounted whale watches in the future. And you can also adopt a whale if you'd like. We have 4 up for adoption. We have owl, shark, badge, and sockeye.
look at her slapping Jordan.
And any proceeds from our souvenirs and memberships directly benefit our research, so we greatly appreciate anything you can do to help us out. It continues our research and gives us more information about the humpback whales' finbacks to share with you. We'll also be handing out comment cards if you'd like to fill those out. Give us a little bit of information about where you are from and what you had for an experience today. What we'll do is at the end of the trip we will pick a comment card. Someone will get a free trip to come back
We better
with
write
us
a comment.
on another whale watch. So please take time to fill that
We
out.
better do that.
See that one all the way down there? You guys can see it? Oh, back there. That's how you see it, right?
What'd you say?
See that one all the way back there?
Yeah, that's all right. Coming a summer day. A little warmer. Right, Todd? My hands are like ice cold.
10 o'clock is the cap again. Like I said, we're getting pretty close to having to turn around and head back. We are 20 miles off shore, off
Oh,
of
see your head,
Gloucester,
Jordan?
so it's going to be a bit of a ride back in.
Whoa, that's